I'm so excited today to have Jason Schemmel on the podcast. Jason's been a digital marketer for 14 years, 11 of those spent in corporate with HarperCollins Christian Publishing and Amway. Before that, he worked 7 years in retail, which helped him learn empathy, service to others, and hating the phrase, "that's not my job or department." He and his team at Get Social Done deliver Fortune 500 marketing results to businesses and local home service companies at small business prices. He is on a path to help people understand that everyone goes through difficult times and challenges, even though all we see on social media is everyone's highlight reel. Jason, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I would love to start, Jason, with a little bit of your story. I'd love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
The term leader is just, it's kind of fluid in that there's no real term of it. Like, you don't have to be in a leadership position to be a leader. And I think I started realizing this in my time in retail. So started working in retail when I was 17 years old, been there for 7 years. And I learned throughout my time there, it's really just being the change that you want to be, being the person and the representative that you want to be. And this is where like empathy really comes into play. Whether if that's internal facing with the people that you're working with, or your customers, clients, things like that, the outward facing, how they expect to be treated as well. And I learned this early on. I was fortunate enough to learn this early on in my time at Best Buy, which at the time was fantastic. You know, back in the day, mid 2000s, I was a kid in my toy store talking about my toys, basically. Um, but what I noticed, I started hearing a lot of other people say is, they would be in one department and they might have a question about something else, and they might be in TVs and ask about a computer, and then they go, well, that's not my department, so you can talk to someone there. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do that. Instead of just sending them off and stuff, you could either answer the question for them, because I know some of them, they knew stuff about it, they just didn't want to do the work. Or you can say, I may not know, but let me help you find someone who can answer your question. Like, get them at least to that next step in that path or in that journey that they're looking for. And so I started incorporating that, and it got to the point where I started noticing that people would come to the store and they would ask for me personally, because they only wanted to deal with me, because they knew that the level of customer service that they were going to get was something that they were hoping to get from everyone else, but they weren't getting it. So they would much rather talk to me with the expectation of, I know that even if Jason doesn't have the answers, he at least can guide me into the next to the next person who can help me answer that. And so that really helped me set up for my career in digital marketing and social media, and even where I am now with my agency. It's part anticipating people's needs and their pain points and their challenges, and trying to find content, solutions, and answers to help them along that path. And then on the flip side of it, people are asking me questions about things like, especially AI in marketing, and how that's the new shiny tool for everyone now. But like, no one's an expert at it. No one has it figured out, but we can learn together. We can take that and be like, I may not know right now, but let's try and find out together. And that way we can both benefit from it.
That's so good. And I think there's so many things I want to dive into there. One of them, the tagline for your business first, I think is awesome. Delivering Fortune 500 marketing results at small business prices. Like, right there, you're leading with a ton of value, and it really illustrates what you're describing, even from your days at Best Buy. You're trying to deliver a relationship. You're trying to deliver something that is going to be not just, cold and impersonal, but you're delivering something that's much more personal, that's much more of a relationship focused service. And people respond well to that. The results are important, to be sure, but I think you're bringing so much of yourself into the business through that tagline and through what that conveys. Like, has that always been the case? Is this something that you've carried with you and that you share with your team? Hey, this is who we are. This is how we do it here.
I definitely try to as much as possible because especially in my industry, like marketers are a dime a dozen. They're
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to differentiate yourself from your competition, as most entrepreneurs and business owners would understand. That you're not the only person in your industry and niche. And I know all of the Alex Hormozzi fan base and all this stuff is like, oh, be one of zero, be the one person, carve out your little thing, which is great. But no matter what, you're still going to have some competition. No matter how you perceive yourself or present yourself, there's always going to be some people who'd be like, well, this person does it cheaper, this person does it
Mm,
better, and that stuff. It's like, how can you make yourself unique from everyone else? And
mm,
so that's what I've tried to do with Get Social Done, is that we're very personable, we're very understanding. We're going to get you those results. Our
mm,
team is fantastic. I was fortunate enough to find a business partner who's come on as well, and he's had a lot of success with his own agency. And so now, like, we've combined forces and things like that. And we've both come up from different walks of life, in that we've had entrepreneurial ventures before. We've tried other things. We've had successes, some here, some there. But we know that things don't always work. They don't always go the way you expect them to or want them to.
mm,
And just that hard work and consistency over time is going to lead to the luck and the success that a lot of people see online. So while we have this very enticing tagline of, Fortune 500 results at small business prices, it's true. We'll get you the ROI and the return on ad spend and everything like that with our clients. Is like we try and make their business as much like we're a part of their business, like we're a team member on them,
mhm,
on their team. But at the same time, though, we don't want to be charging them 10, 15, 20,000 a month and all that stuff just to get those results. A lot
mhm,
of gurus and coaches, all the high level people are like, just get yourself 10 to 15 clients, charge them 10K a month, and you'll be set. You're like, true, but now that's everyone's focus. And then all of a
right.
sudden, we realize that the smaller businesses now don't have access to these amazing people and these amazing teams because they're charging so much. Not to say that there isn't value in the bigger priced agencies and consultants and things like that. It's just, for my partner and I, we've had to bootstrap ideas before and things like that. And we
Mm,
know how hard it is just as an entrepreneur and a business owner, because you're stretching yourself so thin trying to think of everything at once. You're like, I still have to market. I still have to make sure people know that I exist and that I'm doing this thing.
mhm,
And so getting access to marketing services where it's not going to cost me most of the money I have set aside to do this venture, we try and
yeah.
offer that to people. So that way everyone has access, or at least most people have access to it, and have a chance to get noticed.
I imagine that takes more time,
It
to
does.
deliver that level of service to clients. Like, this is not something you can just automate, right?
No, I mean, you can automate processes, but in terms of results, you can't automate those. And it doesn't matter if you're doing ads, if you're doing SEO, if you're doing organic things. It's marketing is a game of patience. It's a game of
Yeah.
consistency, patience, and perseverance. It's really those three are the things that are going to lead to marketing success. Because no matter what you do, even if it's ads take time because you have to test things, what's going to work and what doesn't work. And not everything is going to work. And it's even from your perspective, if you're starting off this venture and be like, I know my target audience, I know my people, I know what they want, what you put out may not resonate with them.
Mm,
And sometimes it's hard to come to terms with that, because even me as a marketing professional, I think I know what people need to hear. I know what they want to, I know what's going to draw them in and everything, using the consumer psychology and everything. And you start putting stuff out there and the results don't come back. And you're like, but this, in theory, this should have worked. I've talked to people, I've talked to friends, this should work. But then you think you're trying to reach the masses, you're trying to get this massive collection of people. And
mhm,
I've even worked with clients before where I'll put together an ad campaign and I'm like, all right, we're going to use this copy because from my research, this is what's going to be most effective. And then the client comes back and says, that's great, but I also want to put in this messaging too. And I look at it and I go, that's a bit of a pivot. It's a bit of a different perspective, but we're going to try it just because you never know. And there have been times where their random one-off kind of out there thing outperforms my stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm really glad we tested it because now we know. It doesn't make me
mhm.
feel or think of myself as any less of a marketer. It's just that willingness to test and put it out there and find out what works and what doesn't, and then continually build upon it.
Mm. I love the thread that you have woven so far in our conversation that has been so intentional, and that is the importance of consistency.
Hmm.
A friend of mine says consistency is the mother of momentum. And I
Yeah.
think so. We want momentum in our businesses, and all of your clients want momentum. And the path to get there is consistency.
Mhm.
And, that seems to be a hallmark of what you're talking about. And everything that you're describing, you're highlighting the importance of consistency. Is that something you tell your clients regularly and with this type of intensity?
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's a free workshop or masterclass I'm giving, if it's the first onboarding call, or 6 months down the line, and we're talking about the next campaign that we're working on. We want to constantly make sure that people understand that consistency is the common denominator to movement, to success, to finding what's really working and what isn't.
Yeah.
Because if you show up once, if you have a flash in the pan kind of thing, it's great and it works for a short amount of time. But if you consistently make improvements, then over time, that's where like the whole theory of compounding interest comes in. So like all of those little successes over time are going to lead to one massive success when you zoom out and you see the big picture as a whole.
Yeah. That's so good. It's so easy for somebody to look from the outside and look at you and say, oh man, his journey's just been up and to the right. Like he's never had to deal with the kind of setbacks and failures and struggles that I deal with as an
Mm,
entrepreneur. And one of the things that I love about you, Jason, is that you are so honest about the fact that not everything is up and to the right. Like if somebody
mm.
sits across from you and you're having coffee with them and they say something like that, like, you don't really deal with what I deal with. You haven't had to go through what I've had to go through. How do you respond to that?
Well, first I laugh. That's always my first thing. I'm like, if you only knew, because like so one of my favorite memes, like business focused memes, is the whole like the path to success, and it's two pictures. On one side, it's the expectation where it's just up and to the right. It's a straight line up and to the right, and then you look at the other one, which is more realistic, and it looks like a kid's squiggly drawing. It's everywhere, and then you might get up there, maybe.
Right.
Um, but I mean, but that's actually a very accurate representation of what the journey and success looks like. Because I mean, especially on social media, you're
Yeah.
looking at everyone's highlight reel,
Yeah.
and that's why it is like it has been so accustomed to things of like depression and things like that, especially in the business space, because you're seeing all of these people, these leaders, these influencers, and everyone just be like, oh, look at this, look at this car I'm leaning up against and snapped a photo of. Doesn't matter if it's my car or not, you don't know that.
Yeah.
But all of these showings of like, I'm successful, but they never, but the thing that, if you take a step back, the thing you start noticing is they're not actually very transparent about their business at all. And
Yeah.
that's where I like being honest, open, and transparent and everything of like, no, things are not great right now. I only have a few clients. I wish I had more, things like that. It's like, not everything is great. And so I try, and sometimes it can be challenging, but I try to force myself to open up on social media and be like, hey, like I didn't have the best week. I didn't have the best month. I want to,
Mhm.
ideally, I want to normalize that it's okay to not be okay and not always be achieving and always be
Mhm.
successful and stuff.
That's good.
Instead of making social media my constant highlight reel, it's like
Mm.
I'd rather kind of pull the curtain back and be like, no, this week was a hard week. This didn't go the way I wanted it to, so that it normalizes that thing, that whole aspect of it. And I even started a podcast on that years ago. I'm bringing it back, but I started a podcast called the Get Stuff Done,
Nice.
um, where we have guests on there talking about like, hey, like you're, to most people, you are a very successful person. You've done some amazing things, but let's also talk about those challenges, those roadblocks, and those setbacks and everything. And I have yet to have one person go, I had it easy. It was a straight up and to the right journey for me. No, it was constantly, I tried this, it didn't work, it failed.
Mhm.
I tried this one. It worked a little bit better because I was able to use the experiences I got from the first try, and it was a little
Mhm.
bit better, but then that
Yeah.
failed. And then they start collaborating, they start getting into groups, they find mentors, they find other people to work with and bounce ideas off of, and learn from their experiences, their successes, and their failures. And then just all of that is just a culmination of building up to the success that you see today.
Mm. That's so good. One of the things that a lot of the people listening are struggling with is how to manage their time. They're entrepreneurs who are starting something new alongside a full-time job.
Hmm.
And that's a difficult thing to do. You've only got so much time. None of us get more than 168 hours a week. And
Hmm.
time is the most valuable thing you have. It's the one non-renewable resource you get. You can always make more money. You can never make more time. How have you managed that problem? How have you dealt with that issue in your journey?
Hmm. Well, first and foremost, it's a constant struggle. It is a constant struggle because I myself, even though I'm building up this agency, I took a full time contract gig working for my local city's Parks and Rec department as their social media person, just to help bring in some money while I'm building this thing up. Now, obviously, the
Uh-huh.
goal is to focus more on the agency and have that out earn the gig, so I don't have to rely on that anymore. But
Yeah.
it's a constant balancing act, and it's never 50-50. And that's just on the professional side of it. I still have a wife and kids at home that I have to care for, cater to, spend time with, quality time with.
Yeah.
I've got two kids that are 15 months apart. They're 4 and 5 years old, and they like
Wow.
to play around and get attention and all of that stuff too. So it's a constant balancing act of what do I need to prioritize right now, and
Mm.
how do I utilize my time the most. And even then, you still have to take time for yourself too to decompress and everything. It can't
Yes.
constantly be go 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 all the time. No one can be able to do that. Maybe Elon Musk, but he's always the exception. But I digress. Um, but and that whole balancing act is going to be different for everyone depending on your
Yeah.
priorities. Not to say that you have to prioritize one over the other or anything like that. It's just you need to find out what works for you because everyone's journey is different.
Mm.
One of the common terms in marketing, in business, corporate, whatever, that I'm really not a fan of, and I cringe every time I hear this, is the term best practices. I hate that term so much because someone will come out and say, "Here's my best practices on how to manage your time and everything." I'm like, that's great, but that's your use case.
Right.
This is what has worked for you. And there's
Right.
there's no guarantee, there's no assurances that if I apply this to my life, my
Mhm.
situation, my environment and everything, that I'm going to get not just the same results, but even just similar results.
Mm.
It's still nice to see what other people are doing, but
Yeah.
I think too many people hear the term best practices and then go, "Oh, this is a recipe I should just follow and then I'll get the same results."
Mm. That's so good. And the balance problem or challenge, I think it's not a problem to be solved as much as it is a tension to be managed. This balance
Mhm.
between family and work, particularly as an entrepreneur, because it's not like it's 9 to 5 and you can just
Right.
leave it at the office, right? I mean, you're building something. And it's not like you can just push pause on those relationships that matter most. So one of the challenges that a lot of people listening to is how to manage that tension between growing their business, giving it the time and the energy and the focus that it needs, and family life. Because it's not like you can just put those relationships on pause. I mean, you can try, it doesn't work that well. Relationships don't thrive in that type of an environment. How have you managed that tension?
Well, first and foremost, I married myself an amazing wife. That is that's really it.
Okay,
What was that?
that's key.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It really is. I mean, you'd be surprised, but yes. She's been amazingly supportive and understanding in my ventures and my ambitions and everything. Um, and so with that, we've established this really tight partners together. We're coming at this as a team. Even though I'm the one
Yeah.
working on a business, she's working full time to help bring in benefits and a little extra money and things like that. And now I'm working full time to, again, so that we can both care for our kids, care for our family, keep a roof over our head and everything. But she also understands that when I come home, and usually after the kids go to bed, I'm back in my computer, I'm working at it, creating content, working on my client stuff, and everything like that. So it again goes back to that whole thing we talked about of finding that balance. And again,
Yeah.
it's not always going to be even. There's definitely going to be teetering here and there and everything. But
Yeah.
especially with balancing, that work life balance that everyone likes to try to achieve, it's
Mhm.
having that understanding, that open communication with your partner of talk about your goals, talk about your dreams and your ambitions and your plans and stuff. So that way, bring them in on it, and in that they know what you're trying to do. Because
Yeah.
there's definitely going to be some hardships. I mean, admittedly, this year, 2024, was not our best year. Especially within our relationship, my wife and I have said on numerous occasions this year that this was by far the hardest year that we've had in our 7-year marriage.
Hmm.
Just because of all of the different things that have been going on, with her going back to work, with me going back to work, starting this business, and the business has been doing well so far, but not as well as we had hoped. Now, granted, we had bigger ambitious goals than we initially thought was going to happen, but it's still trending upwards, which is good. So 2025 is looking better, but we had to get through a lot, and our marriage was definitely challenged. We had some rough patches that we had to work through together. But again, it's that whole coming together, having that open transparency, that honesty. It's not just outward facing to your audience, and to your social media and everything. It's internal too. And again, just trying to find that balance of making sure that your personal relationships are still thriving, and at the very least intact in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're also able to work on what you need to work on to better yourself.
I love that you shared that, and I appreciate the transparency there, because again, I think a lot of people look at other people's relationships at their families and they're like, they never have a rough day. Everything's just
Right?
great with them. They figured it out and they never have an argument or a fight.
We just don't post
And
everything online. That's why.
that's right. Well, and I think that's
Yeah,
reality, isn't it? I think reality is that everybody has those moments. Every relationship has struggles. And,
absolutely.
and when we're honest about it and we lead with that kind of transparency, then we invite other people to understand and say, oh, you too? Oh, me too. And we
Absolutely.
can
Like, oh,
help each
I'm
other.
not the only one going through this.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And the reality is, most often, you're not the only one going through it, but you cannot
No,
find encouragement and support if you're not honest about it.
very true. And you need to be able to see that, and be open and honest about it too, because when it happens, and it definitely will, if it hasn't, for anyone watching this, if it hasn't happened yet, it will happen. That's just
That's right.
fact. But
Yeah.
when it does happen, or if it has already happened, if you're currently going through it and you feel like you're all alone, because
Mhm.
I've definitely felt that way on numerous occasions, not just once or
Yeah.
twice, but on numerous occasions, that's when you need to start reaching out to your people, whether if it's your professional network, your personal network. Find someone that you can talk to. It doesn't matter if, like, you feel like you're down here and you're way up here. That's the case in
Mhm.
point. Earlier this year, how Dr. William and I got acquainted was that I had an opportunity to go to a mastermind summit down
Yeah.
in Cancun, of all places.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about a challenging conversation, convincing my wife to let me go to Cancun by myself
Yeah.
and say, hey, it's for the business. It's for the business. It's not just
Right.
pleasure. It's not just fun. It's for the business. And
Right.
yeah, she gave me the look of like, I better get a trip here soon too. Yeah. Um,
That's right.
but think about it though. Like, again, going back to the open honesty and transparency and everything. That was
Yeah.
back in what, June, I think.
Yeah. July. Yeah.
July. Yeah. So at the time, my agency was just 6 months old, and here I am with this opportunity to join all of these other agency owners who have a lot more success than I do. And like, going into this, like, I knew I was the lowest guy on the totem pole, like revenue wise, audience wise, and everything like that. But the fantastic thing about it is that most I didn't get a chance to talk to everyone there, but most everyone I talked to was like, we've been there. We know what you're going
Mhm.
through. Keep going.
Yeah.
Here's the
Yeah.
experiences that we've had. Here's how this can help you. If you need anything, let me know. And there's at least, I would say, realistically, 15 to 20 people. I could reach out to them on phone, messenger, email, whatever. And within a few days, they'd respond back to me going, how can I help you?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
And
the value of being in the rooms like that, right? It's the
mhm,
relationships that you build.
absolutely. Yeah. And so, yeah, so it's worth, if you haven't found that network yet, it's not impossible. I mean, that's one of the great things about social media, is that there's groups everywhere, there's people
Yeah.
everywhere, there's coaches and mentors that You don't always have to pay for their time and their services. If raising my hand, I'm one of those people. I love giving back because I know what it's like to go through all of the crap and all of the downside of things, and when things aren't working out and everything. And I like being that coach and that cheerleader in people's corners going, it's okay. This is a part of the journey. You need to experience this so you can
Yeah.
appreciate the times when they're good.
100%. 100%.
Mhm. Yeah,
And that kind of,
it's like your first car. It needs to be kind of a beater car so you can appreciate later on when you have a nicer car.
that's right.
If you start out with a nice car, then you won't appreciate when you have it even better.
That's exactly right. That's so well said. Your business, even as young as it is needing you to lead at a different level today than it did 6 months ago.
Mhm.
And 6 months or a year or 5 years from now, that's going to be even more true.
Oh yes.
How do you stay on top of your game? How do you level up with the new leadership skills that your business is going to need you to have in the days and months and years to come?
Honestly, it's always keeping that growth mindset.
Yeah.
And if anyone's never heard of the term, check out the book by Dr. Carol Dweck. It's an amazing book all about growth
Yes.
mindset. It's basically just leaving yourself open to learning new things. It's like we're
Mhm.
always learning, and that's one of the things I've always noticed about very successful people is they never
Mhm.
stop learning. They
Yes.
don't have one success or read one book or watch one seminar or workshop and just go, okay, I've got this completely figured out. That
Mhm.
yeah, you might at that time and space and everything, but if you want long-term success, that consistently building success and
Yes.
everything, you have to keep learning and you have to keep leaving yourself open to learn. And so, like for me, and in my journey with Get Social Done, starting out, it was just me laying out the foundation of everything. I had to do the outreach, the work, the day-to-day work of my clients' social media and everything. And then I'm like, okay, I need to start scaling this up. I need to find ways where I can free up some free time, get some stuff off of my plate. And that's
Yeah.
where, again, I got super lucky and found a business partner. And now together we have a fulfillment team. So they get to do the day to day stuff as he
Yeah.
oversees the team. And I'm still doing outreach and things like that. And so now that's shifted to me doing more podcasts like this, having my own podcast, creating more content. And even though
Mhm.
that's taking away time with clients and my team and everything, I still have to make time to check in with my team to make sure everything is going well there. I've had to start building my own sales team because I can't do as much direct outreach because I'm trying to do more podcasts and webinars and workshops and things like that to get the
Yeah.
brand out there, to provide more value, to show that we know our stuff, trying to find ways to differentiate ourselves instead of
Mhm.
going online saying, we do this. So if you need this, come talk to us.
Yeah.
Um, I'd prefer a more direct approach of like, let me show you some valuable things that we know. And if you found this valuable and you want us to work with you so that we can apply more of this to your business, then
Mhm.
let's have a conversation about
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I think that learning posture that you're describing, I call it a teachable spirit. This is a choice that you and I get to make every day.
that
And I
every
think
day.
by
Yep,
making that, not only are you setting yourself up for the success ahead, but you're also modeling that for your team. So that because they're going to
absolutely.
follow where you lead, right?
Exactly. Yeah, 'cause they're going to see you going, holy crap, Jason or William has been doing all of this stuff. How do they do it? I want to get, like, ideally, you want them to think, I want to get to that level too. I would love to
Yes.
have it if some of my salespeople just see what I'm doing and go, maybe I should do that too to get in front of more people. Now, I've
Yeah.
encouraged them to. It's not an expectation. I'm like, hey, this is a great way to get in front of more people. Just
Yes.
provide value. You know, we can show people the playbook. We can show people all of the things that we do, the strategies, the implementations, not just the how and the what, but the why we do things
Yeah.
that way. Because initially people would think, well, aren't you just giving away all of your secrets? Then why would they want to work with you? Well, a lot of people in their business want to focus on what they're good at. And even though
Yeah.
we're giving them basically the entire textbook of like, here's how you do this, they're going to look at this
Mhm.
going, this doesn't make sense to me. So I'd rather just have you
Yeah.
do it for me.
Yes. Absolutely. Because you bring the expertise.
Right.
Right? You bring the skill set, the expertise, and as a strategic growth partner for a business owner, you're doing this so that they don't have to try to figure it out and hit every ditch along the way. You're going to help them go farther than they could on their own, and you're going to help them
Right.
get there faster.
Right. So really just we're giving that information so they understand what's going on and they
Yeah.
can apply it themselves. It's going to take them longer to get those results, but if they want those results faster, that's where we come in. But then we're also working from a better place, a better foundation, because they've now seen us apply this stuff. They've seen our use cases
Yes.
in our testimonials and everything. They know that when we apply these strategies, it'll work. So that way it happens faster.
As a continual learner, somebody who tries to stay in that learning posture, is there a book that has made a really big difference in your journey that you would recommend to the leaders who are listening? Hey, if you haven't read this, check it out.
Oh gosh, there's so many. I could look at just my Audible list and there's at least 50, 60 books and all that stuff. I'm looking behind you at your library going, yep,
I do like to read.
yeah, absolutely. It's a good thing, that learning mindset. Yeah.
That's it.
Um, I would say for leaders, you can't go wrong with Dale Carnegie. His
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People is absolutely
Yes.
phenomenal. There's 3 or 4 other books that are great. Simon Sinek, Start with Why, and understanding that
Yes.
whole process is fantastic. If you're getting kind of if you're starting to understand here, it's a lot about like consumer and personal psychology and stuff, how people think, how to really get in touch with them. And then another one, more modern books. Alex Hermotzi's books, the $100 million
Yeah.
offers and sales, or
Yeah.
leads, excuse me. Those are fantastic books, even if you're not in a business, even if you're not in like a people business or anything like that. Just looking at the style that he
Mm.
reads, or the style that he
Yeah.
created his books, and he'll
Yeah.
even be the first to say this. He wrote his books at a 3rd grade reading level. Not to say that everything's like super simplistic and he's using like really small words and everything, but he makes the information very easy to understand, and he uses
Mhm.
examples that are very easy for people to apply and be like, okay,
Mm.
now I get this. Like you're gonna
That's good.
come at me with this complex thing that may not make sense on the surface, but
Mm.
then in showing us, or like in teaching this complex thing, you're going to apply it to a very easy to understand scenario that applies to most people. Kind of like
That's good.
like going back to the whole car thing. Like you want to make sure
Mhm.
your first car is a bit of a beater, a fixer upper, and stuff like that, so you can appreciate the nicer side of it. Alex kind of
Yeah.
does the same thing with a lot of his content. He's still giving you very much a business education, but he simplifies it down that it's easy to understand and comprehend.
So true. Jason, I could continue talking with you for another hour. There's so much wisdom that you have gained so far in your journey, and I know your best is still to come.
Oh, it
Eh,
is. Oh yeah, I'm not done.
No, not even close. I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected to you and continue to learn from you and more about what you do. What is the best way for them to do that?
So there's the website itself, getsocialdone.com. If you want to get a hold of me personally, I'm most active on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can just look up Jason Schemmel. I should be the only one up. I don't think I have any gangers or evil twins, anything like that. From there, you'll find out that I've got a couple of different Facebook communities and groups. I'd love to have you be a part of it. And yeah, if you have any questions, any comments, anything like that, I'm always an open book, as you can tell.
We will have all those links in the show notes. Jason, thank you so much for your generosity today and your kindness in sharing so freely and transparently from your journey.
And thank you for having this show and for having me on it. It's been a wonderful experience.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.